Millions of drivers spend years inside the same car and never find half of what's actually built into it. Most people think they know their car inside and out. But here's the shocking part. Automakers hide entire systems behind unlabeled buttons and unmarked panels, and one of them could save you from a $200 tow bill, or worse. And you're probably sitting on 3 or 4 of these right now without knowing it. Here's 16 hidden car features you need to know. Let's begin with feature number 16. Hidden features. 16. The tiny arrow that ends the awkward pump dance. You've pulled up to a gas station, parked, and only then realize the pump hose won't reach your fuel door because you guessed the wrong side. Everyone's done the awkward reverse and repark while cars line up behind them. Here's the fix, and it costs you literally nothing. Look at your fuel gauge icon on the dash. Right next to the little gas pump symbol is a small triangle or arrow. It points to exactly the side your fuel cap is on. Every rental car, every borrowed car, every new car you've ever driven has this. Glance at it once before you pull in, and you never guess wrong again. What they don't tell you is this became a near-universal dashboard standard specifically to solve this problem, yet a huge share of drivers still eyeball it and guess. Hidden features. 15. The extra sun visor you never pulled out. Your visor is flipped to the side to block a low sun, but light still sneaks around the edge and hits you right in the eyes at the worst possible moment. Merging, changing lanes, right when you need to see clearly. Squinting through it isn't just annoying, it's a real visibility risk at 60 miles an hour. But here's the fix. Grab the inner edge of your side-flipped visor and pull. On many cars, Mazda, VW, Nissan, and others, there's a slide-out extension panel hidden inside it that most owners never touch in the life of the car. It extends the visor another few inches exactly where the gap was. What they don't tell you is manufacturers rarely mention this in the manual at all, so it just sits there unused for years. And here's the kicker. Because it's often the difference between a clear view and driving half-blind into oncoming traffic, it's one of the cheapest safety upgrades your car already came with. Hidden features. 14. The mirror tab that kills headlight glare. You're driving at night, and the car behind you has their brights on, blasting straight through your rearview mirror into your eyes. Some drivers just tolerate it for the whole drive, which is exhausting and genuinely dangerous over a long trip. But here's the fix, and it's been sitting under your mirror the entire time. There's a small tab or lever at the base of the mirror housing. Flip it toward you and the mirror tilts to a dimmer, reflective surface, the night setting. Flip it back during the day. What they don't tell you is the mirror actually has 2 separate reflective surfaces built into the glass, one bright and one dim, and the tab is just physically tilting which one you're looking at. It's a decades-old trick that still works on almost every manual mirror on the road. Hidden features. 13. The volume knob that adjusts itself. You're cruising at 70 on the highway, road noise climbs, and suddenly you can't hear your music or your podcast over the wind and tire noise. So you reach over and crank the volume. Then it blasts your ears the second you slow down for traffic. Constantly riding the volume knob is a distraction you don't need. Here's the fix. Many cars already do this for you. It's called speed-sensitive or speed-compensated volume, and it's usually on by default in the audio settings, automatically nudging the volume up as your speed climbs and back down as you slow, so the level actually reaches your ears stays consistent. What they don't tell you is the system is quietly reading your road speed the whole time and recalculating in the background, so it feels like the stereo just knows. And here's the kicker, because it's already active on most modern systems, you may have been assuming your stereo had inconsistent volume for years when it was actually compensating for the road the entire time. Hidden features. 12. The button that blocks outside air. Entirely. You're stuck behind a diesel truck in traffic, or driving past something that smells terrible, and your AC just keeps pulling that same outside air straight into the cabin. There's a fix sitting on your dash the whole time. The recirculation button, usually shown as a car icon with a looping arrow. Press it, and the system stops pulling in outside air and only recycles what's already inside the cabin, which also cools the car noticeably faster because the AC isn't fighting hot outside air anymore. What they don't tell you is that same button is doing double duty as a pollution shield. sealing exhaust and dust out of your cabin when you need it most. And here's the kicker. Leave it on too long with the windows shut, and CO2 actually builds up in the cabin fast enough to make you drowsy. So the smart move is recirculation on for a few minutes, then switch back to fresh air. Hidden features. 11. The storage compartment. Hiding under your seat. Your car feels cramped every time you're trying to hide a bag, a laptop, or something valuable out of sight before you leave it parked somewhere. Most people just shove it under a seat and hope for the best, in plain view of anyone glancing through the window. Here's the fix. Lift the seat cushion or check the floor panel underneath. A lot of SUVs, trucks, and even sedans have a molded storage bin, or a lift-up panel that's completely invisible unless you know to look. Jeeps, several pickups, and even some Infiniti and VW models have one. What they don't tell you is these compartments are deliberately unlabeled and undocumented in most manuals. Specifically so they stay useful as hidden storage rather than becoming the first place a thief checks. Hidden features 10. The snowflake that warns you before the ice as you're driving on a road that looks completely dry, and then you hit a patch of black ice you never saw coming because nothing about the road told you conditions had changed. That's exactly the gap this next feature closes. On many newer dashboards, a small snowflake icon lights up automatically once the outside temperature drops to around freezing. It's reading your outside temperature sensor, not the road surface itself, but it's an early warning that conditions could turn dangerous. What they don't tell you is it's purely a temperature trigger, so a dry-looking road with that snowflake lit is exactly the kind of road that hides black ice. Treat it as your cue to slow down and increase following distance, not as a guarantee the road is fine. Before we get to the really important ones, the ones that can genuinely get you out of a dangerous situation, do me a favor and hit that like button. Digging through owner's manuals and technical documentation for all 16 of these took a while, and it genuinely helps the channel when you do. Alright, back to it. Hidden features 9. The steering wheel position. You never adjusted. You've been driving the same car for months, maybe years, in a position that's slightly too far or too close, wrists locked at an awkward angle, gauges half blocked by the wheel rim, and you've just adapted to it instead of fixing it. Here's the fix. Underneath the steering column, there's usually a lever, or on some cars, a switch on the column itself. Push or flip it to unlock the wheel, then move it up, down, in, or out, until your arms sit at a natural, slightly bent angle and the gauges are fully visible. Lock it back in place and you're done. What they don't tell you is a properly positioned wheel isn't just comfort, it's clearance for the airbag to deploy correctly. So a wheel that's too close can actually work against you in a crash. Hidden features 8. Rolling your windows down. Without touching the car. You get back to a car that's been baking in the sun for hours, and the second you open the door, that trapped heat just rolls out at you. Cracking the windows before you even reach the door would help, but you're still holding your keys 10 feet away. Here's the fix. Press and hold the unlock button on your key fob for a few seconds. On a lot of newer vehicles, several Nissan, Ford, and Hyundai models among them, the windows automatically roll down on their own from that single hold, letting the cabin start venting before you even touch the handle. What they don't tell you is this usually has to be turned on in the vehicle settings menu first on some trims. So if it doesn't work, that's the first thing to check, not a broken fob. And here's the kicker. This is the same feature that can vent a dangerously hot cabin faster in an emergency, seconds before you're even inside. Hidden features 7. The lock that happens without you touching anything. You walk away from your car in a parking lot, hands full, and you're not totally sure you locked it. So you either walk all the way back to check, or you spend the rest of the day wondering. Here's the fix. On cars equipped with it, certain Nissan, Lexus, and other proximity key models, once you walk roughly 30 to 60 feet away with the fob in your pocket, the doors lock themselves automatically, sometimes with a light flash or a horn chirp to confirm it. What they don't tell you is, it usually has to be enabled first in the settings menu, and if you leave the fob inside the cabin by mistake, the car can lock itself with your keys still in it. And here's the kicker. Most systems give you a warning chirp before it fully locks. so there's a brief window to catch a mistake before it becomes a locked-out problem. Item 6. The hazard button's hidden second mode. You're stopped on the shoulder in low visibility, fog, heavy rain, dusk, and your regular hazard flashers just aren't cutting through it fast enough for approaching traffic to clock you in time. On a number of higher-end vehicles, mainly certain BMW and Mercedes models, holding the hazard button down for a few seconds triggers a faster, more aggressive flash pattern built specifically to grab attention in exactly that kind of situation. What they don't tell you is this varies a lot by brand. So this is one to actually test in your own car in a safe, stationary spot before you ever need it in an emergency. Don't assume every car has it. Hidden features 5. Turning off the nagging. You didn't ask for. You're driving down a familiar back road, drifting slightly toward the shoulder because there's no oncoming traffic for miles, and your car beeps or tugs the wheel at you anyway like you've done something wrong. That constant correction gets old fast on roads where it's not actually needed. Here's the fix. Look for a small steering wheel or dash button showing a car between two lane lines. It's the lane departure or lane keep assist control. Press and hold it until the icon on the dash goes dark and the nagging stops. What they don't tell you is on some brands this only silences it for that drive, resetting the next time you start the car, so don't assume it's off for good. And here's the kicker. That system is still a genuine safety net on long highway drives when fatigue creeps in. So the smart move is turning it off only where it's a nuisance and leaving it on where it isn't. Hidden features 4. The switch that lets your tires spin on purpose. Your car is stuck in deep snow or mud. Wheels spinning uselessly and the traction control system is actually working against you, cutting power the instant it senses slip, which is exactly what you don't want when you're trying to rock the car free. Here's the fix. Find the button with the car and squiggly lines icon, usually labeled TCS or ESC off, and press it. That disables the intervention and lets the wheels spin freely so you can rock the vehicle out. What they don't tell you is this system has been federally mandated on every new car sold in the U.S. since 2012 specifically because it cuts serious crashes. So this is strictly a temporarily stuck tool, not a setting to leave off. Turn it back on the second you're free. Hidden features 3. The metal key. Hiding inside your keyless fob. Your key fob's battery dies, or the electronics glitch, and suddenly your keyless car won't unlock. No clicking the fob, no touching the handle, nothing. A lot of drivers stand there assuming they're locked out completely and start calling a locksmith, which can easily run over $100 for an emergency call. Here's the fix, and it's already in your pocket. Most fobs have a small release button or slider on the edge. Press it, and a physical metal key slides out. Then check your driver's door handle for a small, often unlabeled cover or slot nearby. Pop it off, and that's where the actual mechanical lock cylinder is hiding. Insert the key, turn, and you're in. No locksmith required. What they don't tell you is virtually every push-button start car built since the mid-2000s has this exact backup, precisely because manufacturers know fobs die at the worst possible moment. Hidden features 2. The button that moves your car. With a dead battery, your battery is completely dead, and your automatic transmission is stuck in park because the electronic shift lock won't release without power, which means you can't even push the car out of the way of traffic. This is a federally required safety feature, not an accident, and it has a manual bypass built in for exactly this scenario. Here's the fix. Look near the base of the shifter for a small plastic cover, sometimes labeled Shift Lock. Pry it off with a key or a flathead screwdriver, then press the button underneath or insert the key blade into the slot while you shift into neutral by hand. The transmission releases mechanically, no electronics involved, and the car can now be pushed or towed clear of danger. What they don't tell you is this exists in every automatic car sold for decades specifically because stalled, stuck-in-park cars kept blocking traffic and causing secondary crashes. It's one of the most overlooked safety systems in the entire vehicle. Hidden features 1. The glow-in-the-dark handle that can save your life. Someone gets trapped inside a closed trunk, a kid playing hide-and-seek, or worse, and in the pitch dark, panic sets in fast because there's no visible way out from the inside. This exact scenario, repeated too many times through the 1990s, is why federal law changed. Since September 2001, every new passenger car sold in the U.S. with a trunk has been required to have an internal release handle, almost always bright yellow and coated in a glow-in-the-dark material so it's visible even with the trunk lid fully shut and the lights off. Pull it, and the trunk pops open from the inside. No tools, no phone, no waiting. What they don't tell you is, the material is engineered to stay visible for hours after just a brief exposure to light. Specifically, so it works even in a trunk that's been closed for a long time in total darkness. And here's the kicker. For something that can be the difference between a scary 5 minutes and a tragedy, most drivers have genuinely never noticed it's there, because you only ever see it from inside a closed trunk. Which one of these surprised you the most? How many of these 16 did you already know before this video? Drop it in the comments below. If even one of these saves you a tow bill, a locksmith call, or something worse down the road, hit that like button and subscribe. There's a lot more of these hidden systems we haven't covered yet. Click on this next video. You'll be surprised what you discover.